all the way from Florida area. Or is she from Wisconsin, where she danced ballet in high school and is best of friends with my wife? Or maybe isn't she from right around here? And that's why we have Rich Brauer here, her uncle, who is a filmmaker. He's made many movies. Barn Red, Frozen Stupid, the Dog Man series. He filmed Espionado in the Moonlight. And then another movie with Jeff Daniels. He went to school with Ken Burns, and he says of Ken, he hopes he makes something of himself. We can only hope. So I want to circle back about where is Kim from. And I did not prepare her for this. And these people are Brauers up here, and they like to just go with it. So we didn't do any prep for this, and I did not warn her about what I'm going to say right now. But she is coming from the human condition, right? If you read this book, when I read it, I came up with what I call the list. And it was just one thing after another. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. One thing. And I just thought about it as a weight that just kept being added to her. And there's one more thing to add to that list, the list of the human condition for Kim. And it's that her mother has just been put into hospice care. And so she's actually just coming from Boulder. She just flew in just a couple hours ago. So just I'm keeping that in mind. But let me see what else I wanted to say. Sorry.
I actually appreciate you. I was going to say it anyway, because it feels like it's not the elephant in the room, because not everybody knows it, but it's definitely the elephant in my heart right now.
Yes.
And so I appreciate it.
So, yes. The other thing I was going to say, this is a memoir. She definitely looked inward when writing this. However, she is an outward-looking person. That's why she's here tonight. If you just met her for a couple minutes, you'll know that she's outward-looking. But she has a story to tell, and she wants to start it off with a letter.
So, Uncle Rich, when I wrote this letter in 2014, never in my wildest dreams that I think I would get to read it to you. So we're going to start. And I'm going to cry. Probably, maybe not. I wasn't burn myself. But I thought it would be really sweet to open up this. I'll give you a little context before I start the letter. Researching Charlie is a welcome distraction for the restless, homeless emotions inside of me. Sleuthing gives sadness a temporary place to land. But after a few hours at the library, Dave and I have exhausted our search. I am not satisfied. An unsettling mystery surrounds Charlie's death, but I sense it lived in him long before, woven into his creative voice and the maverick spark that fueled him. I need more. His story is fractured, piecemeal, like an old film strip with too many missing frames. I keep waiting for the full picture to emerge, but all I get is flickering light, glimpses of a life half seen, half lost. Upon returning to Portland, I decide to reach out to Charlie's siblings. They may have some of those frames. They may also want to know their beloved brother left a part of himself behind. They may also not want to know. So I craft a letter, writing my way through shock and emotion. I am not 100% sure I will send it, but my words on the screen make it real and possible. Deep freeze and autopilot coexist in my nervous system, an uneasy alliance that keeps me moving before true catatonia can set in. I am no longer thinking clearly. Instead, I let the momentum of life hurl me into the maelstrom of uncertainty that is my new home. I have to send it. My life depends on it. I hit Command P, fold the paper carefully, and stuff it in an envelope. I seal my fate with a forever stamp. October 2nd, 2014. Dear Richard, I am not quite sure how to write this letter, so forgive me if I stumble. I think it's best I just jump right in. When I was 17, my mom took me for a long walk along the northeast shoreline of Lake Winnebago and told me there is a question around my paternity. She had met your brother, Charles Brauer, at the Mariposa Festival in Canada on the summer solstice of 1974. They shared an evening together. She was already a few weeks pregnant, or so she believed, so she and my dad never questioned my paternity. And without access to DNA tests or easy internet searches, neither did I. My father was my father in every way that mattered, and when he died suddenly in a car accident a half year later, that truth only solidified. Eventually I forgot all about it. But this past spring, while walking with my mom on a beach in Mexico, she shared more details. His last name, his creative pursuits. When I returned home, curiosity led me to Google, where I found Charles's albums and old TV segments. Seeing his face, hearing his voice, watching his hands move, sent me reeling. Then I took a DNA test with my brother Eric. When the results came back confirming we were half siblings, I found myself logging in daily, rechecking in disbelief. Now, of course, anyone in their right mind would probably be a bit incredulous of this story, and I completely understand these feelings. I myself am needing to move cautiously and am also open to the possibility of error. For all I know, I may even have the wrong brother Richard. And if this is the case, please use this letter as inspiration for your next screenplay or a good laugh with your production crew. I do know my mother wasn't with anyone else other than my father during the time of my conception, and that there is no question around my brother's paternity. I also know this letter is probably very difficult and maybe even painful to receive. I can only imagine what it would be like to lose a loving, free-spirited brother many years ago, and then decades later learn that part of him might still be alive. Please know that I come to you with no expectations. I simply feel that if the roles were reversed, I would want to know. I just have a simple yearning to know more about Charles, his life, his passions, the parts of him I may unknowingly carry forward. I've lived with this mystery my whole life, and I can continue to do so, so if you choose not to reply, I completely respect your wishes and privacy and the rest of your families, and you will never hear from me again. And if you do decide to connect, well, that could be a very sweet and strange homecoming for us all. I'd be happy to share my online DNA profile with you if you need confirmation and want to do your own test. You can also find me on all the normal social networking sites under Kimberly Warner in case you need to assuage some part of you that worries I'm some sort of lunatic. And again, if I found the wrong Richard, please accept my apologies. My partner Dave and I just returned from a late summer holiday in Wisconsin to spend time with Lake Michigan and Winnebago and say hello to the magnificent Midwestern season and transition. We also enjoyed a few hours at the Milwaukee Historical Society and found some newspaper clippings on Charles's performances, and the Wisconsin Public Television show Long Ago was all around. And I suppose that title about sums it up for me. In pursuing more information about Charles's life long ago, I hope my present life can be more intimate and informed celebration of the man who unknowingly shared his passion and spirit with a daughter. I hope this finds you with a smile.
Okay, so guess what page number that's on? 143. 43. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. 4-3. Love you. Or 143. I love you. But I need to back up a little bit. I got so into the book. I'm an English teacher. I forgot about all the stuff that other people told me to say. Okay? One being, the bathrooms are there. We've got local wine. We've got Wisconsin beer. We've got books for sale. This event is sponsored by the Leland Library, the Suttons Bay Library, the Old Art Building, and Bay Books. Tina is here from Bay Books. She will sell you a book for sure. And Ken will probably sign it, if you want. Okay, those are, I think, all the things. And then, silence your cell phones. All that stuff. Now I can get back to the type stuff that I like. Yeah, 1:30. Now, Rich and I met a little bit. We didn't prep at all, but I could talk with him for days. And one thing I just got a kind of a kick out of, actually, is when you got that letter, can you just tell us, what did you do?
You can imagine getting a letter like that clearly is really well written and really meaningful. And most of the letters I might get are not well written and miss the point and all that. This thing was pretty on the nose. And so what I did was I Xeroxed and made a couple of copies of it because 2 weeks later I was going to be seeing my two sisters. And so I kind of kept it kind of under my hat, well, totally under my hat. Didn't say anything to anyone. My wife, Marty, I know that night said, "Hey, anything going on today?" Yeah. Well, there was just one thing. So that kind of, but I wasn't really going to tell her anybody. I wasn't going to tell anybody. I was going to let it kind of hang for a bit because it needed to, this is big stuff, and I didn't see that coming. Plus, who is this? No, And, so anyway, 2 weeks later, we're at the family cottage in Beulah, and Carol and Janet were both there, and I handed later, after we got done doing whatever we were doing, I go, "Oh, I got something you gotta read." And I handed it to these two. And, what's this? And as they read it, because they're siblings and they read about the same speed, I guess, they get to the kind of the punchline at the same time, and both of them kind of go simultaneously, "Whoa, wait a minute," kind of thing. And I just let them finish it. And it was a long, clear signal, and it answered all the initial questions of all of it. And so Carol and Janet and I they just were speechless, and they both looked at me and said, "Well, is this possible?" And it's like, "No, it's entirely possible." Chuck was he was an adventurer, a sailor. He rugged, he looked great, he was free-spirited, and went on adventures. And so, it's entirely possible. So that's that. And a little while later, my daughter Gretchen, who lives in Chicago, and by then, Kimberly and I had connected, and you were going to be in Milwaukee anyway for something, I forget what now, and Gray's in Chicago, and I kind of matchmade a meeting with you two. You came up with a bar or some restaurant or something. It was a bar, I guess, right? And so you were familiar with all the bars in Milwaukee. And so Grady found you met. She was the canary in the mine shaft for me and for my family, because not one of us had set eyes on you or knew really what you were all about.
Yeah, and she called you while I was sitting there trembling, and she said, "Take it in the bathroom, it's my dad, have a conversation with him." And I was like, "Oh God!"
So it was quite startling, but when that happened, I get a selfie of you two, and if you saw my daughter Gretchen and my other daughter Grace and saw you, look at our hands. I mean, I don't know, just look at the lifelines and all this stuff. It's all the same stuff, So there's no doubt in my mind that you're part of the gene pool here, and I'm so grateful that you're not crazy, If you took a dart and threw it on there in this crowd and said, "Oh, hey, you're my relative," and you're like, "Well, what do you ever want?" No offense, but maybe that, it's right, but it's not that way. She's a filmmaker. She takes photos. She's a photographer. She's a dancer. I'm not a dancer, but I appreciate that.
So I got such a kick out of that. You did not just get on the phone and call your sisters. And the way I interpreted it, you're a filmmaker. You wanted to be the audience. You wanted to set the scene. And then you sat back and watched your sisters read it. And it must have been kind of magical.
It was really great.
And there was, in fact, I think it was 2 years later, my husband Dave, we were in Beulah and we were having dinner, and he leaned over to you and he said, Rich, just be honest. He said, what was your very first thought when you got that letter? This was before, you told Marty before, and you reached across the table and grabbed my hand and looked in my eyes and you said, I wanted it to be true. And that is the moment, I mean, if there was nothing else that confirmed our relation, that was the moment where because that's how I would have responded. And I'll never forget that.
And it's true, I did want it, and I'm so grateful that it happened. And part of the reason too is that my brother, it would have been 11 years later, after that Canadian folk festival, 11 years later, my brother fell off a sailboat in Lake Michigan, and I've never seen him again. So that was that, and that was in 1985. September 24th, 1985. He sailed away. He's a great sailor. He knew what he was getting into, but Mother Nature had a different plan for him. And when I got the call from the Coast Guard station in Milwaukee asking me about, do I have a brother? And I went, yes. And was in a sailboat? Yes. 26-foot folk boat. Well, I've got bad news. We found the boat. So that's the backstory on all of this for me, was that was the end of it. And so then when this letter shows up, it's not really the end of it. And
No, and we're going to get there. I've got a lot of questions. And I'm going to give you one, and I might actually restrict some of your answers on this next question, because it's the type of question that it could be the only question, and then I'm not ready to mic drop. I could just leave with this question, okay, Kim and Rich. Kim, give me up to 3 different titles you considered for this book. And Rich, you can chime in on that one too. Maybe 1. But I'm guessing that I just want to see what you said, or think about that. Up to 3 different, or at least 1 other title.
There was only one other, and it was Becoming Water.
Okay, I don't want you to say too much more about that. Rich?
was that a question you had written down?
Yeah.
Okay. You said we talked about this, and Kimberly, we...
They didn't want to prop, but I propped.
Yeah.
Okay?
I didn't want that.
But I didn't give them any of these questions. They didn't want that, which I'm glad, I'm fine with that, because we didn't want it to be canned, and it definitely isn't. So, yeah, what do you think? I mean, you don't have to have one. If you read the book, you know, or do you have another title that you would potentially give this book?
Yeah, when I bought a copy for a bunch of my relatives too, but when I got that book, I was flabbergasted a bit how well you write and how you turn everything into so readable and so relatable. And I'm connected to it, but that wasn't what attracted me to it. And maybe a whole group here as well aren't related to us, but find this thing incredibly readable. And so that's how I'm drawn to this book. And it's, I know how hard it is to put down that number of pages in an arc. I do that for a living, and it's really, really, it can be really, really hard. And it just flowed out of you.
Okay. Kim, if someone were to look at you, they might say, you know, what's the unfixed part? And that is a question. What is the unfixed part?
So Unfixed has evolved and it continues to evolve. And it's, the original meaning of the word was very much born from this experience that started around the same time that I entered the Brauer family. And I think it was largely due to the way I was dealing with it, which was not. I mean, I was panicking. And so the unfixedness of my identity, the unfixedness of my family, suddenly became the unfixedness of my body. It literally was translated in my body as living on the water. So like what I'm experiencing right now is but as if we were all on a boat together. And this is just a strange condition, and it's how my neurology rewired and reoriented itself to this strange, uncertain existence, and it never went away. And so I struggled really hard with it for a couple of years. I mean, I fought it and was trying to fix it in every possible way. Nothing was working. Around 2019, I think I got to this place where I thought, there's nothing left for me to try. I don't know what to do. I've gained a family, but I've lost so much because I was barely leaving the house at that time. I was scared to be living in my body. And I ended up reaching out to other people that were living in unfixed bodies, and whether it was chronic migraine or ALS, I mean, it didn't matter, but I knew that there were other people that were learning how to do this, and I wasn't doing it well. And so the word emerged from this desire to find other people that were living in unfixed bodies. And then since then, Unfixed has become so much more than just this chronic body experience. It's now all the things that we wish that we could hack or optimize or, improve in our lives, whatever it is, inefficiency, death, disappointment, all the things. And I'm finding that whatever I learned through my body and through my business of family, there's a creative emergence that's happening from not needing to solve and not needing to fix. And that's been the greatest gift in all of this.
And let's think about the water title that you had. What did you say?
Yeah, becoming water.
Becoming water. It seems like water follows you. Just this week, Northport had 5 inches of rain in just over an hour. You rolled in on a storm today. We're basically on the banks of the Leland River where storms go away from Lake Michigan. It's water, water, water if you read this book. And even if you look at the cover itself, which we'll talk about later, I believe. One of the things that you said about water is that water is part of the it's part of the ambiguity with you. What is up with why is water? Is it just a metaphor too in the book?
It's definitely, I thought it was just a metaphor, but now it's like my existence. But then when I learned about Charlie early on, I mean, honestly, I started to go into these places like, well, his last experience was on water. Is that what I am now experiencing? Well, I mean, I was taking it everywhere to try to understand it. So it was a metaphor and continues to be a metaphor, but it's not just that. I mean, and it's where my father that raised me and where his ashes are in Lake Winnebago. It's where Charlie's bones are in Lake Michigan. It's those 2 bodies of water meeting because the Fox River takes Lake Winnebago all the way out to Lake Michigan. And so in a strange way, both my fathers are meeting in water and they meet in me. And I experience, it's water. Lots of water.
Right. I'm going to throw out a quotation from the book for both of you that I think speaks to both of you. It's from the author's note, and you wrote, "Growth is storytelling." Growth is storytelling. Rich, do you agree with that?
Telling stories are often based on things you experience, but then they turn, at least in my world, they turn into a fictional thing. You use pieces of it. This thing that Kimberly has created is all true, and it's 100% her impression of this thing, and it never swayed from, it never jumped into fiction. It always was true. And so that, I give her a huge accolades for that, and being able to articulate that well over that much time is quite remarkable. And so I look at creating a novel like that as a Herculean kind of option for anybody. And to be able to have that much resources and storytelling and connectivity and that whole water thing, and there's so many things in there that are, you look at people's lives and you look at how connected everything kind of really is, and even your current vertigo situation, that's that water thing clearly too. So it's like it's everywhere in your life, and I think we could probably all track certain things in pieces to our own lives, but you've got a bucket of them. Literally. A bucket. Yeah, a bucket.
Hey, Michael, what do you say? You wrote the story.
I think it's how I find meaning, and I think it's one way that I anchor myself in all of this water. Like for example, as you mentioned, my mom went into hospice last week, and there's this image that I keep returning to over and over and over again, and it's not just an image, but I think in images, as I'm sure you do with film, where things sort of come together in slides. The first morning I was with my mom, she lives in a neighborhood in Boulder, and I opened the door and I heard cattle, and I was like, she's not rural, this is a neighborhood. And I smelled cattle, and what is going on? And I went around the corner, and they're doing this fire mitigation in Boulder County by using cattle. And I went around, and I had just been crying all morning, and I went over there, and there was at least 75 beautiful, giant, hungry, munching cattle. And I was about 5 feet from them, and I could just feel all of their energy and their life force. You know, I was with my mom, and she's getting ready to go, and there was these animals that just were so hungry for life. And this was meaning making for me. This was something that I was anchoring myself with. And whether that's ever going to be written down or not, it's a story I was telling you. I will tell you though, weird. The first one that came close enough for me to see was branded 1, 4, 3, 5, 6, 8. And I took a picture of it to prove it.
All right, so growth and storytelling, she just gives us a little story right there, and captured my attention and everything. Let's go back to September. It might be September 23rd, 24th, I don't know, 1985. Rich, what happened for you?
It was a Monday, and it was very windy, super windy. What I didn't know was that Chuck had just sailed from Sturgeon Bay to Frankfurt. And that's over 60 miles straight across. And for those of you that understand the globe, the curvature of the earth, you can't see Wisconsin from Michigan and vice versa. It's the curvature of the earth, it just prevents that. So for a bunch of those miles, you can't see any land. So that's the reality of that. So he had just come over to that by himself to do something in Frankfurt. Nobody knew he was there. That was Monday. At 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, I lived in Traverse City. We lived on Washington Street at the time. And I woke up at 2 o'clock a.m. on Tuesday, and I was energized by this wind that was outside the window, and it was howling, but it was stars. It was blue sky above, or black sky, but stars. It was not overcast, it was not stormy, it was just a big high pressure coming through, and it was super windy. And I got out of bed, I couldn't shake this energy. And I didn't drink coffee then, and I wasn't using any drugs or anything, so it was just completely out of context for me to do this. And 2 o'clock, I went downstairs and went out on the front porch and did a bunch of jumping jacks, and then I ran around the block. It was like, how do I shed this energy? This is ridiculous. And it kind of was annoying, actually. And then the next evening, at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, that's when I got the call from the Coast Guard. And then I had worked for the Coast Guard on some projects, and so I thought maybe I could get into one of their Pelican helicopters while they're doing their search and rescue. And they said, no, we're not going to let any family members get in a helicopter, no way. So that was that. So what was crazy was that all things kind of shook down. It was a very troublesome time for a few weeks. And I interviewed a woman who was a friend of ours, Joe Lutke out of Frankfurt, had been tending a garden right by the library there, and she was the last person to talk to Chuck. And by that, she told me, she said, why are you going out in this heavy wind? And the Lukes are a maritime family, they know water. And Chuck, why are you going out there? Oh yeah, I just came over and I'm gonna head back. Oh, well, okay, be careful. And that was the last human contact Chuck had. But that gave me the time of day that he paddled out to his moored boat and then eventually took off. So I roughly knew within an hour probably or so when he actually departed terra firma in Michigan. So I'm driving along the road and I'm looking around, I'm thinking about this stuff, and one thing led to another, and I'm not going to do the math right now, but I figured, high wind, I sail a bunch, so I know how it goes. A heavy wind does not mean you're going fast. A heavy wind means you're going, it doesn't, if it's calm and you got a lot of wind, yeah, you scoot, but it's those waves that slow you down, bam, all that. So I was trying to calculate how fast would his hull speed have been when he left at that time of the day to go 65 miles straight west to Sturgeon Bay, which is where his intended target was. And I did the math while I was driving, and the answer came, he would have gotten within short distance of Sturgeon Bay at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, I almost drove off the road because it was like, oh my God. Phone was ringing, but I didn't think of him. I wish I could tell you right now that I thought of him. I wasn't equipped to do that, but I was getting the signal. And if you think about that end of life for him, the boat was discovered just north of Sturgeon Bay, about 6 miles, on a little point called Whitefish Point. Well, the wind was heavy out of the southeast, so if he abandoned, fell, whatever, off the boat, it would kind of go on its own. He would traditionally tie the tiller down so it would kind of hang out in a roughly same trajectory as it would have been. He was probably pulling some sails down because there was Sturgeon Bay right there. And when it lurched, whatever, it kept sailing away and he's in the water. So think of that moment when the waves block the lights of the city. You're a mile offshore, not far. And then all of a sudden there's the city lights. And you're swimming in this wind, and then the waves come, and then it's black. And you think of it, the realization that, he got through a lot of difficult times in his life that he got himself into, just because he's adventurous, and he did get through a lot of them. This time, I can only imagine where he's going, I'm not going to get out of this one. This one's not going to go. And that's when the phone was ringing. For me. And when I found when I got the Coast Guard involved, everybody was in this, we found the boat, and I took my dad over there to show him where the boat had beached, and it was high and dry. It was 25 feet from the water's edge by that time. The water had quieted down. The boat was 25 feet above the water line on shore. It's incredible. It's like, how the hell does a fixed keel sailboat get pushed that high up on ground? Those waves were intense. So I took my dad over there and showed him where the boat was found and all that. I had the boat pulled out of there by Palmer Johnson, a marine company there. And then we're driving straight west. And in Wisconsin, they have these very unimaginable names of highways going east-west. XX, YY, XY. It's like, I don't know, the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know who the hell came up with those, but they did. And there's a few interconnecting roads in between periodically that are only a mile long. Within a quarter mile of where Chuck's boat hit the dirt, in between two of these east-west roads is a 1 mile road, dirt road, named Brauer Road. And it was like, Dan and I stopped, I took a picture of us standing next to this thing, and it was like, how the hell did that happen? Out of the 300 miles of Wisconsin shoreline, come on.
Reading this book, it's a memoir. These are the things that happen. It gives me chills. I love these kinds of things, but had it been, one question for you is like, did you think about making this a novel? And if you did, would you have to tone it down because people would say, not believable?
Yes, 100%. I mean, to me, it feels like, well, Charlie Chuck was a trickster. My dad that raised me was a trickster. So I think they're in cahoots with one another. And they're having way too much fun because, I mean, even down to like one of the other details in the story, David was the name of the father that raised me, Charlie. My biological father, my husband's name is David Charles. And I didn't know.
It just goes on and on.
I didn't know about Charlie when I met Dave 20 years ago. And it goes on and on.
And if you're like me, I start looking for these. I know she doesn't even look for these things, but Charlie built a house on the Ferryville, Wisconsin, with the writer's nook up on top, on the sort of near the banks of the Mississippi, right? So I'm really into like, or I'm really cognizant that we're on the 45th parallel here, halfway between the equator and North Pole. And so I'm like, I don't know about Ferryville. Well, that is exactly on the 43rd parallel. So she's, you know, the cow at 143. It's in your dorm room number was 43, your exit to your first year of college is 40. It's just like all over. And you're not even looking for them, I know. You don't have to.
Well, I mean, it does make me suspicious that, and I think about this a lot right now with my mom, that how much our family members, our ancestors, our loved ones, they actually do participate in our lives.
I know. It just makes me think, I always believe things are connected anyway, but it's just like confirmation, and it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Back to that day, you know, Rich, that's incredible. Like, never since did you wake up in the middle of the night and want to do like jumping jacks and run around your block. I mean, we could confirm this.
That has not happened since, by the way. Another 40 or 30 some years ago.
Okay. Okay, there you go. But Kim, what did you keep a journal your whole life? You know?
Well, no, believe me, I did look back to think, well, I would have been 10 years old, and my family was vacationing all the time on Lake Michigan. September would have been a little late in the season for us to come over here. We usually go to Rock Island. But that year, my father's parents lived in Saugatuck, Michigan. And my mom said that we did visit them in September of that year. So I was living in Lake Michigan. Not sure which date of that month, but September 1985. I was definitely swimming in that way.
It's just.
I want to add one thing too, is that on the positive side of all this stuff, okay, my brother's been gone longer than he was alive. He was 36 when he fell off the boat. And I thought it was a prank. I thought he was gonna just show up a year later on that day. And so for years, even now, I go to that park bench in Frankfurt thinking I'm gonna see that guy. I mean, it was like that for a long time. And even now, I think I kind of gave up on that. But what's amazing, though, here's the good part about this, is that, and I use the word adventure in an incredibly positive way for him. That guy was like Baron von Munchausen, the guy that told stories that were so unbelievable that it's like, that's impossible, that's a bunch of BS, there's no way that happened. He was like that, and it all happened. And that adventurous spirit, which is life, and he was living life, man. And he got more out of that 36 years than most people do. And that adventure is right there. Right there. And that's the part I'm really touched by.
Yeah. Let's talk about the cover for a minute. My friend keeps talking about this famous book with a horse on the cover, and she swears that it doesn't have anything to do with the horse. Chelsea, where are you?
It's the Anne Patchett book. It's not really about a horse.
Okay, sure. Well, who made this cover? And Rich, you're a creative person. You know, how would you have made the cover? Would you have added anything like a horse to it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Just a random horse, maybe a little kitten, maybe.
It was Dave's. My husband did it. And he did it in about 5 minutes. I mean, he knew exactly. I saw it and I was like, yep, that's it. And it's not my profile. And I like that I think we can put ourselves, we all have had a moment or a period of our lives where we feel like this uncertainty just completely overwhelms us. And so it didn't need to be anymore.
And you've got that bun hat, right? It's a gangster.
Oh, yeah, well, that's probably just because you grabbed some, you know.
Is that your silhouette or not?
No, that's not. No, but yes, I have the ballet bum.
That's right. Yeah, he's a great designer for sure. All right, so let me see here. I'm going to give you a quotation from your book, but talk about boyfriend Ash, which I just learned a couple nights ago. It's not really his name. I wondered if you changed, because Anya was our buddy, and I started talking about this little part in the book or whatever, and she said she used his real name. I'm like, I won't tonight. But anyway, we'll call him boyfriend Ash. In college, you were, you said this about that. Introducing Ash to my former life feels scary, confusing, open quotation now. Blending worlds is too confusing, too unmooring for my fragmented identity. Can you talk about that?
Well, that goes right back to the water. And I'm not really into astrology, but I did learn from a friend that does astrology that apparently we have fixed signs and unfixed signs, or signs that aren't fixed or whatever. I don't have a single fixed sign in my whole chart, and apparently that's really unusual. So I'm bringing this up because this is that chameleon part of me. From a very young age, I could just sort of be who you want me to be. But then when I would bring two of those worlds together, I'd be like, what am I supposed to be? Because I'm this one over here, and I'm this one over here, and it was just, it was a way that I was learning to cope. And I learned this from other people that have late in life maternity discoveries. We often, growing up, feel that something is not quite right, but we don't see it out there. And so we end up internalizing that not quite right thing. And so you feel this incongruency inside, and then you find security through the relationships that you have. And so I was finding my identity through these relationships, and that would shift based on who I was with.
I'm going to give you another quotation. Kim 1 wants to celebrate chaos, play, vulnerability, and uncertainty. Kim 2 needs control to survive. Then a little later in the book, create. Stop thinking so hard. And then, this really caught my attention. You said a few more pages later, I am feeling happy for the first time in my adult life. This question is actually for Rich. Rich, what if Kim had grown up over here as a Brauer?
Do you mean, and none of that other stuff happened?
Yeah, like the incongruency, like she's compartmentalizing almost, doesn't want to share. She has a boyfriend, doesn't really want to bring him back. And this is me interpreting you, but you can correct me. Where you be creative. The first time that you're happy is when you started that blog with Dave, the XYXX, and then this is the first time you were truly happy, when you started being creative. So instead of you answering, I thought, Rich, what if she grew up in a Brauer family? Could it have been different?
If it's as if she did grow up in a Brauer family. She fits in. She looks just like the rest of the women in the Brauer family. There's a bunch of blonde-haired ones right there, and that's so you physically would fit in the way your spirit fits in with everybody. I mean, so it would have been fine. I wish Chuck would have still been here to see this, because that's, he, as far as I could tell, really knew nothing about this, and so he's looking down from somewhere right now, going, damn, I wish I was here, to be here, be a part of this, but he is a part of it. That's amazing.
So Kim, what do you wrote about, you were fighting it, your father who raised you was a heart surgeon, you thought you had his hands, like, I need him, you lived a privileged life, you're like, I gotta get back. So that was one part of you, but then was that bringing happiness? And were you really giving back? Are you finding yourself actually able to give when you're more tapped into this creative side of it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I am Charlie's daughter through and through. I was shaped and I think deeply loved by the man that raised me, but I am Charlie's daughter in so many ways. And I think it wasn't until my husband entered my life and he had a creative path and started facilitating some of that in me instead of me being all wellness. and all of a sudden I felt, I think because, and come back to that word again, unfixed, the creative path allows for uncertainty. It allows for ambiguity. It allows for things to not collapse. You don't have to be black and white. You can let pain and joy exist at the same time. Like, creativity lets all of that happen. You just wrapped a film and there were probably tons of incongruous moments, but in that creative act, it just all gets to be there. It's messy. And I think for me, that feels like home. The not needing to find the actual answer.
I'm going to throw out another quotation for you. Navigating grief, and this is a good one for both of you. Navigating grief has made me a better person. And those are your words. I don't know what Rich might say about
that. Well, right now, that one, it's like I would look at my younger self that said that and I go, she had distance from it when she said that, because in this last week, I have been a monster in a lot of ways, and I'm glad also that I'm allowing myself to be a monster because I wasn't when my dad died, but I've been feeling all of it. And in finding that love can hold all of that, my mother is incredible and she was able to meet me in that anger and that is ultimately making me a better person, but in the moment, if any of you saw me 2 days ago, you would have said,
you know how I said you definitely looked inward on this project, but did you just sit down, hey, I'm gonna write a memoir?
No.
We need to hear that. Like, where did this come from?
It was only for myself. I never, ever was supposed to share it. But this was me figuring shit out. And it poured out. It definitely poured out. I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I did that, and I don't think I'll ever be able to do it again. But in 2018, we had just moved into a new place. My husband was working in town. I was all by myself. I was crazy busy all the time. I was spending most of the time on the floor. And I just was like, and I had people that knew the story that were saying, Kimberly, you gotta write this down. Because there were so many serendipities and all that. And I thought, I'm gonna forget all of this because I have a terrible memory. And I thought, let's just start writing it down. And I thought I might even just do a big long timeline or something on the floor. But once I started writing, it was cathartic and anchoring. Like, it was anchoring something in me. And it took 3 months, and when I was done, I put it on a hard drive, and I thought it would never see the light of day again. And it collected dust on that drive for 3 years, and I didn't tell a soul.
But also, you didn't just stay there with that book in the making. You also were creative in another way, where you were looking at not just your story. This is your story, but didn't you help other people tell their story?
Yeah, that was way more comfortable. This was just to be my own private little thing. And then that's when I was trying to figure out how to do this living in a body that was so uncomfortable. And so I reached out first to people in Portland, and I found a wonderful gentleman with ALS, and then I found some other individuals around the country, and it grew into 20 people, and I started pulling on my former filmmaking inquiries and just curiosity even though I hadn't picked up a camera in 5 years, and I thought, it was selfish. I really needed their answers. I needed them to tell me how to do this. And so that was right before the pandemic, which was actually benefited me because I did free shoots with individuals, and it was so stressful, and I was sweating in my armpits all day long, and I was dizzy, and I just thought this is going to be really hard to do with 20 people. Pandemic shut everything down, and so I had them film themselves, and over a period of 2 years, I just asked them a question every month, and tell me how your relationships have changed with chronic illness. Tell me if you would you give up everything you've learned since your diagnosis in order to be cured? Those kind of more psychological questions. And so for 2 years I did that, and I was learning and taking it all in.
And that's a documentary, basically, right?
Yeah, it's like a docu-series. It's all free for people to watch.
You just find it if you're looking up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Charlie. Okay. Charlie research. How would you disappear? Like, you have a book maybe that someone found? I remember reading about this. How likely is it that, I know you already spoke about this a little bit, but have you completely written that off?
It took probably 15 years to every year to sign off on it. And for real, I'd go down to the park bench at that, as I mentioned before, but what I didn't mention is I would buy a can of cheap beer. My truck like the old style, so I would find a comparable cheap beer like that. And I'd sit there thinking that here's what I thought would happen. I'm going to show you. Kimberly doesn't know this. So just stay here. Just stay put. This is what I thought would happen. I would be sitting there with a can of cheap beer, looking out over the bay, Betsy Bay, to a mooring that Charlie probably had his boat tied to. And I'd be sitting there just thinking, where did that son of a bitch, did he pull this off? He was having girlfriend troubles, whatever. I don't know what was going on. And then this would happen. And that's what I hope for.
So well,
What would your response have been if you had done that?
I would punch him in the head. And I was bigger than him a little bit, so I could have chased him, and he was wirier than I was. But I could have found him, I would have pummeled him. And, but that never happened. That was year after year. At first year, second year, I took my kids down there and made them sit with me sometimes. 5 years, okay, maybe. 6 years, I don't know. 10, maybe. Nope.
I know I have to wrap this up, but I made the list, if you're gonna hear it. You know what I'm talking about, the list of things that happened to you? The human condition. Your dad dies, you're 18. You have a new dad, but then he had already died. You have a new family. Sid, your step daughter, no stable housing. Kim sells her house too. Dave, mom dies. Charlie's house is destroyed by water. Your cat dies. Building blows up. Pelvic fracture from the leg accident. OCD tendencies. Unresolved grief. Screams at mom. Shut up. Finally, she apologizes. You're like, that's gonna be it. The apology is it. It's not completely. Probably nice to hear, but. You're 40 years old, living with your mom. You wrote, I failed, I'm a failure. But we're not leaving it at that. I know we have to wrap that up. What are you busted through all of this and you continue to. How do you want, I'm giving you the last words, both of you.
Well, how do we navigate all of that? Which is, we all have our versions of that. I'm not special. I find it's a discovery, but I'm finding that there is softness in the contradictions, and finding a way to live with the complexity of life instead of needing to fix it and answer it is so much softer, and in fact, there's actually this strange thing that happens when we can fully embrace that very thing that we really wish we could get rid of. Its opposite is actually revealed. Meaning, I wanted to get rid of movement. I don't want to be moving all the time. But when I finally was able to completely let it pummel me, a stillness emerged. Not a stillness that takes away the movement, but a stillness that coexists with the movement. And that's been a lesson that I can bring into even the grief right now. I was sitting on the plane today thinking, where's the joy, where's the smile in the grief? And it's not going to take away the grief, but I know that both can be there.
Rich, any final?
It takes a ton of courage to do what she's doing. I can tell you that. And you know, it's to even get to a point where you accept things that we can't control, and then somehow turn that into goodness, at least. And it's not just admitting it and saying, "Ah, that sucks." It's like you've turned it into something that is made you perhaps a stronger person, and you've made that you've made lemonade out of it somehow.
I agree.
And I don't know anybody else that can do that, but you did it.
It's beautiful writing. You made art out of it. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I'm made from the same stuff you're made of. And so it comes right back to you and the family and the love that you received me with, that welcomed me with without any hesitation. That has been the glue that makes me believe that it is possible. Because otherwise I still probably would be friendly.
Awesome. Let's end with one more. 4 3 to everyone. Thank you for coming. I wish we had time for questions, but we really don't. So, but Kim will be back there signing books, and Tina is back there. So.